tunnels of the Japanese Imperial Army. Let's have a discussion about the tunnels created by the Japanese Imperial Army, and how they utilized it to hide their Yamashita treasures. You need to know that when it comes to tunnels, the Japanese soldiers were quite indeed an expert to this field. This is the reason why some of the tunnels that they created still remain up until today, such as the Dipne-Supuan Japanese tunnel. Based on all of my experiences with the Japanese tunnels, I noticed that they are not always built the same way. In my own personal opinion, this is probably due to the type of ground. If the place has a soft and loose type of soil with the tendency to collapse, the Japanese soldiers used supports, such as timbers and rocks. But if the properties of the ground are hard, then they did not need to place supports. When it comes to the sizes of the passageway of the tunnels, it can be spacious, where you can stand and walk around comfortably. However, there are also tunnels with passageways that are too tight, that you need to pass through by crouching, and walk around like a duck walk. As for the chamber, or rooms inside the tunnel, they are intended to be more spacious, where several individuals can fit and gather around. In a tunnel, it is very common that the Japanese soldiers made more than one chamber, or room. These rooms were used by them to gather, make plans, and rest or sleep. So if you happen to discover a certain Japanese tunnel, you should expect not just one chamber, but more. Anyway, you can pinpoint the correct chamber, where the treasure deposit is hidden through proper interpretation of the markers left behind by the Japanese soldiers. It is a lot easier to determine the right chamber if it is sealed with hard and thick concrete, which is so obvious that something is hidden behind. So if you manage to break the seal, you can expect to uncover the treasures. However, not all tunnel deposits are sealed with concrete, where the Japanese soldiers have other different methods of hiding their treasures. There are some cases where the chamber is not sealed with thick concrete, and the treasure deposit is simply buried underneath it. But the problem here is that there are too many chambers or rooms around the tunnel. You have an additional problem if you do not know how to interpret the markers around, which can help you locate the correct room. Unless you can do it the hard way of digging every chamber of the tunnel. The tunnels made by the Japanese soldiers weren't just intended for hiding their Yamashita treasures. It is actually a part of their defensive strategy against the Allied forces, which scared them off. Many of the Allied forces had been taken down by the Japanese soldiers through the use of their tunnels, which allowed them to initiate their surprise attacks. They run out of food, so as their ammunition. If you come to think of it, the outcome may be different if they happen to have the supplies they need. Anyway, let's go back to the tunnel and the hidden Yamashita treasures. The most common perception by most treasure hunters when it comes to tunnel deposits is that the item is hidden inside. However, you need to know that this is not always the case. Some of the Japanese soldiers had already expected that there would be some individuals who would attempt to find their treasures. Thus, hiding them inside the tunnel was not a good idea, because it's the most obvious hiding place. So they decided to hide them outside the tunnel, particularly near the entrance. This is the reason why most professional treasure hunters are also interested in locating the entrance of the tunnel. If the item is not hidden inside the chamber, or outside the tunnel. It is also possible that the treasure is hidden at some certain portions of the passageways. Interpreting the passageways of a tunnel is completely similar to the old creeks, rivers, and trails, which we have already covered in the other previous videos. If the passageway of the tunnel has a shape similar to the letter T, then you can find the treasure deposit at the portion indicated by the dot symbol. As for a curved passageway, the item can be found at the outer portion of the curve, as shown here in this illustration. If the passageway of the tunnel has a shape similar to an X, or cross, then the item is buried at the center, where the four passages have intersect. The most common shape of a tunnel passageway bears a Y shape. As indicated by the dot symbol, the object can be uncovered at the side, where the three passages have intersect. Thank you very much for watching and happy treasure hunting.